Okay, Morai v'Rabotai, Birshut Kol HaKal HaKadosh Hazeh, we'd like to get started. Do very much appreciate, as a word of introduction, I appreciate everybody coming out, especially the ladies that came out on a Thursday night, not so simple, especially that it was last minute. And do have tremendous hakarat tov to the entire Gila that really, they came together. They supported me in every way possible. And the debt of gratitude that I have for the Beit HaKnesset for the last week or so, and of course all of the 10 years that I was here, is something that I won't forget, and I appreciate a lot. Hashem yishmerechem v'yichayechem, the amazing board that got on an airplane and came all the way to Los Angeles. It provided a strong amount of chizuk, gave strength to myself, it gave strength to my whole family. Everybody was so impressed and inspired by that. And I appreciate that. And I know that the four tzaddikim, the four board members that came, were simply representing the entirety of the Gila that surely wished to come. And I appreciate that. Yes, sure. I want to talk about my sister, Mitali Naomi bat Gila Farcha. Before I start, say some words of Divrei Torah that I read by Rav Michael Peretz. Lemala min hashemesh, what is higher than the sun itself? So the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat tells us, Kol hamit'atzel be'espedo shel chacham ra'ui lekovro b'chayav. Any person that is negligent, is lazy, in eulogizing a wise man, a Torah scholar, is fit to bury him in his lifetime. To be buried in his lifetime, meaning he's fit to be taken from this world. If he wasn't careful to eulogize properly the Chacham. How do we know this? Because it says, Vayikberu oto mitzafon lehar Gash, and talks about Yoshua bin Nun and his passing. He was buried by Am Yisrael, mitzafor, northward of Har Gash, of the mountain. And the Gemara says that we don't find such a mountain named Har Gash, but rather, since Yoshua bin Nun was buried without carefully being eulogized, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to take the mountain and bury all of those people that didn't eulogize properly. So what did they do? If you look at Rashi, he clarifies some of the information behind the scenes. What was the eulogy of Yoshua bin Nun? He explains that the way they eulogized him was they took cheres, they took earthenware, and they basically carved out a sun, an image of the sun, the moon, the stars, and they put it on his grave, right next to his grave, in order so that everybody that passes by sees it and remembers that this man, Yoshua bin Nun, was able to hold up the sun, the moon, and the stars. As the pasuk says, Yoshua said these very powerful words, Shemesh begiv'on dom ve'yareach be'emek ayalon, that the sun should stop, should simply pause in Giv'on, and the moon should not move in Emek, in the valley of Ayalon. Those powerful words, the sun debated Yoshua and said, why should I stop? I sing by my movement. I sing praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Yoshua said, I'll take over. I'll do the Shira. And indeed the sun stopped, the moon stopped. The Navi itself testifies that there was never such an episode. Not before Yoshua, not after Yoshua. Even though we know that Moshe Rabbeinu stopped the sun, we know that Nakdimon ben Gurion stopped the sun, we know in the times of Hizkiyahu, the king, the sun stopped, but it was never like during the time of Yoshua bin Nun, where it wasn't just the sun, it was that he stopped time itself. It was all the mazalot, it was everything, the entire creation essentially stopped. For Yoshua bin Nun and for Am Yisrael. So they mentioned this. So they did eulogize him. So they did make a reminder so that anybody that passes by will say Chaval on the loss of Yoshua bin Nun. So in what sense did they not eulogize properly Yoshua bin Nun? So Rav Peretz says as follows, something powerful. He says what they didn't do properly is they were missing something that was even greater than causing the sun to stop. And when you eulogize somebody with something that's less important, when you could have eulogized him with something that was more important, it's the equivalent of not eulogizing. They didn't do their job. Well, what was more important? What was something that was more historic, more valuable than causing the sun to stop? Could there be anything higher than that? Says Rav Peretz, you know what was more that they didn't mention? That they didn't focus on enough? Moshe קיבל תורה מסיני ומסרה ליהושע ויהושע לזקנים. Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he gave over and transmitted the Torah to Yehoshua. And Yehoshua was the link in the chain to transmit the Torah to the next generation. They mentioned the miracles of Yehoshua. They mentioned the historic feat, but how did you not mention, even more so, more importantly, the greatest accomplishment of this man Yehoshua bin Nun is that he transmitted the Torah to the next generation. He was a link in the chain of the Mesorah of Am Yisrael. And if you didn't mention that, ad kedei kach, it's so serious, in such an omission of the life of Yehoshua bin Nun, that it was worthy of all those involved in the eulogizing of Yehoshua bin Nun to be buried by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he took a mountain and wanted to bury them. It's a Gemara. So I stand before you eulogizing my sister, who was certainly a chain in that link of passing over, transmitting the Torah to her children, to her 13 amazing children that are themselves on the path and already are Bnei Torah, Rabbanim, Chachamim. The Gemara tells us in Moed Katan that there's 3 days, Shlosha Yamim Libchi, Shiva Yamim Lemisped. There's 3 days a person after the passing is supposed to cry, allowed to cry, supposed to cry. 7 days from Misped. Misped means eulogy. And I was thinking, how can I eulogize my sister? It's beyond 7 days. She passed away on Sunday last week. So I said, it's possible that on a simple level, I was in Los Angeles and I didn't have the opportunity to be maspid her in New York, which is Sha'ari U'Mekomi, my place. And the 7 days begins when I land in New York. Makom Ahir. Additionally, the Gemara says the exception for this rule is a Chacham. A person who's a Torah scholar, you can eulogize him even beyond 7 days. Although that certainly applies to Talmidei Chachamim that sit and learn Torah. But since her children were Talmidei Chachamim, or on the path of becoming Talmidei Chachamim, the young children, so it's in the same category. And one is allowed to eulogize even after. Most importantly, the Gemara there says, Hamitkasheh alamet. Expression the Gemara uses, mitkasheh, it comes from the language of kasheh, of a question, of difficulty. And Baruch Hashem, we're very, very far from such a mentality of questions and difficulty. We are here to be thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To be thankful. I'm thankful that I had Mitali as an incredible sister for 47 years, 47 amazing years, where she inspired me, where we got close, where we were able to understand each other, we were able to raise parallel families in very, very close paths that we had. And I'm thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, especially for the last 2.5 years, where we heard the news almost 3 years ago that she had cancer, liver cancer, and it was already advanced. And normally and naturally, there's no way to survive for as long as she did. It was simply a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was the zechut of tefillot, it was the zechut of all of the actions that people took upon themselves, the tehillim, the merits, the prayers, the tears. And we're thankful that HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't just give my sister 2.5 additional years to live, but she was able to live it with the same energy, the same strength, the ability. Yes, she went to treatments every Thursday, and it severely weakened her, but she was able to do all of her functions. Whether it was raise the kids, carpool the kids, whether it was do homework with them, there was to work, take care of everything that she took care of. Another accomplishment that we want to hopefully have, what we aspire is to learn the lessons. Rabbi Yonatan Eifshitz says something powerful. He says when a person passes away, all of the midot, all of the characteristics of that person become hefker. They're now ownerless, not just in the physical sense. When a person passes away and he doesn't have relatives, as an example, his possessions become hefker, they become ownerless. A person's midot that he had and acquired during his lifetime also become ownerless. And he says further that any person is capable of finding the midot and acquiring it for themselves and making it their own. And that's why it's important to learn about the life of great people. And my sister, I would put in that category for sure. It's very difficult for me. Usually, I have the honor and privilege to be helpful to others with their pain. And that's something that I don't take lightly. It's an honor, something that's valuable to me. It's something that is a zechut. But today, I open my heart and my pain so that everybody else can hear and that I could be helped. So 2.5 years ago, as I mentioned, I first heard from my sister, from my family, that Mitali has the machala. And I remember the feeling because it was a year after my father-in-law passed away. And very fresh in my mind, going to Israel, burying my father-in-law. I was very close with him. When I heard the news about my sister, that she had a very serious cancer, and I knew what that meant, couldn't stop crying. I can't do this. I can't bury my sister. I knew what it meant to bury someone close. Mitali was atzmi uvsari. She was my own bone. She was my own flesh. 13 kids, it's just something I couldn't think as becoming a reality. It was unbearable. I cried to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I remember going to, right after the news, very soon after was my oldest niece. She got married, Tamar, which was Mitali's daughter, her oldest daughter. Yonatan is the Bechor, and the oldest daughter is Tamar. And she was the first one to be married in the family. And her wedding was shortly after the news. I remember flying in for the wedding, and tears were rolling down my eyes. I just stood aside and I couldn't handle it. Every single wedding I went to, every single wedding I was zochet to be mesader, I would cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and I would tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please be mirapeh my sister. Heal her. I remember vividly the Rosh Hashanah, first Rosh Hashanah, after the news, we were saying a very famous Achot Kitana, which translates as young sister, younger sister. And I was reading the words, Tefilotea, Ena rafana lemachalotea. I buried myself in my shtender. I couldn't stop crying then either. Today, the void that the passing of my sister has left in my heart at times feels like an entire world, an entire universe cannot fill. I was talking to my brother-in-law, Rabbi Leeor, at the Shiv'ah, and he mentioned something that was so true. He said, it's very strange talking about Mitali. She would never be okay with it. If she was here, there's no way she would allow any of us to talk about her. She would never agree. She wouldn't understand, what are we talking about? I lived a very simple life. I didn't accomplish that much. You guys are exaggerating. And she would be very upset at me right now, I know. And I said, Amir, you're so right. That's exactly what she would have felt. And it feels very strange to talk about a person that never wanted to be talked about, never wanted to be the center of attention. But it reminded me of the Chafetz Chaim that was asked. So the Gemara tells us a person who runs after honor, honor runs away from him. And if he runs away from the honor, then the honor runs after him. And they asked the Chafetz Chaim, it's very powerful, but if you think about it, lemay nafka mina, what does it matter if you're running away from the honor and the honor is chasing you, or if you're running towards the honor and the honor is running away from you? Either way, there's distance between you and honor. So there's really no nafka mina. And the Chafetz Chaim answered that you're right, in life there's no difference. But the big difference is once a person passes away and he's not able to run anymore. If he was running after honor, the honor escapes. If he was running away from honor and the honor was chasing him, the honor catches up with the person. So she was always a person that ran away from this. But Mitali, you can't run away anymore. It's only fitting that the honor catches up with you. I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to say a story. I'm going to ask a question that was relatively recently. I myself didn't know until I heard my dear brother-in-law's Hesped in Los Angeles. It's an incredible story. It was 2 days before this Pesach. They were at their visit, the experts, the doctors. I think the doctor's name is Dr. Isaacov. He's a world-renowned. People go from all over the world. He treats cancer. He was the one that treated my father-in-law as well. He's recommended by the top organizations. An expert in his field. And he had my sister Mitali and Rabbi Leeor in his office. And he told them that the treatments are not being responded to. The body is not responding to it. There's nothing more that he could do. What happened after that, it moved me. I had to listen to it again and again and again. So powerful. They both understood what that meant. Mitali looked down and said the words that I vividly imagine in her tone and in her fashion, saying, Ratzon Hashem. the will of Hashem. And then without hesitation, she whispered, "Thank you for all the wonderful years." I heard that, and I had a question. I didn't understand how she was capable to bring herself to such a level, to be able to accept, knowing full well what she's physically going to be missing out. Children's weddings, grandchildren, bar mitzvot, raising what she cared so much about, raising her own children. To be able to say, Ratzon Hashem, thank you for all the wonderful years. How did she have the koach to do that? Is a question that I look up, I'm astounded. How did she reach that? How did she reach such a level? Now I'll give you a little bit of history, background, because most people don't know my background so well, and don't know my family's background so well, most importantly. Mitali was born in 1977. She was born in Eretz HaKodesh, in Eretz Israel. She's a middle child. She has, and I have, an older sister, Tarikh Yamim Batov Shnotea B'Neimim, Oshrat, who was born in 75. She's B'ri'ayin Hara, 50 years old. And both my older sister and Mitali, who was 2 years younger, were born in Eretz HaKodesh, in Eretz Israel. When she was 4 years old, my family, my father, my mother decided that it's not suitable for them with the current situation that was there to live in Eretz Israel. They decided to move to Los Angeles. I had a few uncles that were out in Los Angeles, and they figured that's a good place to move to. He moved to Los Angeles. They sent both of my sisters to a school named Yavne. Yavne, if I had to compare it, I guess a step below maybe YCQ, something along those lines. Religious school, very secular education focus, heavy, focus on the Limudei Chol, it's top notch, and religious. She went to Valley Torah for high school. She was a salutatorian, and she went to seminary for 2 months in the summer. I think at most 2 months in the summer. Neve Yerushalayim, I remember because our whole family was there that summer also. And at 21 years old, she got married. Amir at the time was 28 years old. He was 7 years older than her, 28 years old. She was really smart, always. She worked for a very, very important company, big company, CPA. And she, after a few years, she changed to become her own CPA, in charge of herself, and to create her own company with her own framework is amazing, incredible. Actually, I say a little bit jokingly that I, did a little bit of the training that she had to become a CPA, because the CPA, the field she worked in was tax credit. She would get people save money for big companies, different things. So I said her first real test in the field was when I was a little kid. I was about 9 years old. It was my birthday, and my mom, she got me a Baskin-Robbins cake. I used to love Baskin-Robbins cake. So she got it for me for my birthday. The thing was, that year, I don't know what happened, but they got me mint cake. Like, there was mint flavor, and I really didn't like mint. So I was like, okay, I don't like the inside the cake, but I like the frosting, so I'll eat the frosting. And then something happened, there was a whole discussion, but I basically ate all the frosting. And my mom said to my sister, Mitali, she said, we're not going to eat this cake, it's mint, he doesn't like mint. Take it back to Baskin-Robbins. So my sister was like, okay. So she was able to drive at that point. She's 9 years older than me. I must have been 8 or 9 or something like that. And she was driving age, 16, 17. And she goes with me, we go together, we take the cake. I'm there with my friend and my sister. Now she's busy arguing with them. And they're like, we're not taking back this cake. Look at this cake. And she's like, you have to take back this cake. This is not the right cake. You told me you were going to give me this cake. You gave me that cake. There was a whole balagan. They got into a fight over there. And she's, standing her ground and they're standing her ground. And she ended up getting a Baskin-Robbins credit. They gave her credit for, for a different cake. And that was her first, test in the credit industry. And she passed. She did good. So I take a little bit of credit for the training. The truth is that when I was a lot older, I was probably 17, 18 at the time, her company, not her company, the company she was working under, she was still working under the company, they needed employees fast because they were doing a whole thing and there was a deadline. They needed employees for that week. So she said, it's fine, my brother, it's the summer. He's not doing anything anyway in the summer. All right. So she says, we need your help, come, they'll pay you, don't worry, it's going to be great. You should do it. You'll learn the job. It could be panasah for you. I was like, all right, fine. Let's do it. So I was like, I'm there for a week. They told me what I need to do. It was pretty basic. It wasn't anything special. Something with Excel sheets, find mistakes. A lot of number crunching, very boring type of job. But I did it good. I worked hard. I was there. I basically didn't take breaks. I even remember once in a while, she would come over to me and she's like, you need to take a break a little bit. You get an hour off. You don't have to work so long. I was like, okay, fine. So what should I do? So she's like showing me around and I see like how everybody's like, is that Naomi's brother? Because my sister would go with Naomi. She would always be known in the work as Naomi. Is that Naomi's brother? I see like, wow. And I saw how they would light up in their faces like, whoa, it's Naomi. I was like, wow, why are they so excited about my sister? This is who she was. She was incredible. I asked her after the week I worked, I was like, how much should I ask for? Because I never negotiated the price. She's like, you should ask them. You did such a good job. You should ask them $40 an hour. I was like, $40 an hour? That's so much. I can't do that. No way. They're not going to give that to you. I'm going to ask for 20. She's like, fine, ask for 20. And I ended up getting it. But my question is, very humble background. How did she become this person that by the end of her life is able to say, Ratzon Hashem, thank you for all the wonderful years? How did she become that? A lot of times people, they tell me things about themselves. I speak to a lot of people, Baruch Hashem, and people open up. Problems, challenges, difficulties, and sometimes the conversation goes something like this. Rabbi, what I'm about to tell you is going to floor you. You might never want to speak to me again. You'll never look at me the same again. And I'm thinking to myself very often, you don't have any idea where I came from. You don't know what I was. You don't know what my family was. We started from nothing. We didn't have anything. Spiritually speaking, my father and my mother, when they came to America, my dad wasn't wearing kippah. My dad didn't have tzitzit. My mother wouldn't cover her hair. It's only when she would work in Torah's Emes, she'd have to cover their hair. But otherwise, she wouldn't cover her hair. Shabbat, what was Shabbat? How did we start? Shabbat was Kiddush. That was it. That was the concept of Shabbat. Do Kiddush, have the family over, and then do as you please. When my sister started dating, again, 19 years old, 18, 19 years old, and the proposal of Amir Dotan, my future brother-in-law, came up. It made no sense. I was just talking to my brother-in-law in Los Angeles, and I told him, Amir, do you know if Mitali was in my Gila, and you were suggested, and I was the Rav, I would have never allowed for this to happen. It didn't make any sense. At that point in time, we had some basis of religion. All the rules were broken. All of them in their dating. It's lemala min hateva. Like the second day, I could give you countless examples, but the second date, I think it was, very early on, my parents decided to invite Amir for a 3-day Yom Tov to our house. So he stayed at our house for a 3-day Yom Tov on a second date. Like that's like the most illegal thing you could do. I'm not sure why he agreed either. My grandparents were there. My whole family was being analyzed through and through. They went through 3 separations while they were dating, all basically because the levels were nowhere near each other. My sister was here, he was not close. The wedding itself, I remember some things, but I'm still trying to get a hold of the tape recording, and I have a feeling that it was purposely destroyed so that nobody could find any evidence to how things went down then. A lot was missing. A lot was missing. Mitali, in her beginning years of marriage and certainly teenagehood, she had her struggles with basic things in Judaism. That was the reality. That was not just hers, it was all of ours. It was our entire family. Was very weak. So that lends me to ask the question again. How does such a person, with such a humble upbringing, that wasn't that strong spiritually, when my brother-in-law, Rabbi Amir, asked her, why did you say yes to get married? It made no sense. She said, because I saw that you had good midot, and the rest I figured I could work on. How does such a woman accomplish so much that she's able to raise 13 children from a background from Los Angeles, where their culture dictates the complete opposite, where her upbringing didn't lend itself to aspire to become Talmidei Chachamim and Bnei Torah, where in her own life, the number one priority for many years was a job, college, UCLA. She went to. Somebody just told me that there were only 2 frum Jews in UCLA. It was them and her. So the 2 frum Jews in UCLA. What's a frum girl doing in UCLA? It was unheard of. It's different. And to have 13 children, Yonatan Dotan, learning in yeshivot, you all know him, how unbelievable he is. His brother Dani, 18 years old, finished Shas, is learning in yeshivat Chevron. Tamar, married to a person that I can't begin to describe how much of a tzaddik he is, how incredible he is as a man of midot and Torah. The other sister, the other daughter, Tehila, who is now living in Muncie and married to Ben Torah over there. How did she manage to accomplish all this? Her tzniut, how she started and how in the later years, in the last 5-10 years, her dress, her itnagut, the way she would conduct herself, how she was so far from the social media world. If the last few years she didn't even have WhatsApp, but even when she had WhatsApp, she never used it. It was very hard. You'd have to email to get in touch with her. Dani, my nephew, brought a pile of books. Mesirat Yesharim, Nefesh HaChaim, Sfarim, Musar Sfarim. And he opened the back and showed us the dates that she wrote, when she started and when she finished. Piles of books that she learned on her own. The carpool. This I have to explain. Carpool in Los Angeles, when you're living in the valley, means you're driving a half hour to the city, and then a half hour back, and then again in the afternoon, a half hour there and a half. That's 2 hours every single day. And she wasn't able to have, because she had, Baruch Hashem, 13 kids, so she had her own full car that she would commute every single day, morning and evening, 2 full hours. Never with a complaint, only happiness. It's my honor, it's my privilege, I'm so happy to do it. I'm able to listen to Shiurei Torah, I'm able to connect with my kids. What everybody else did didn't matter to her. If it was the right thing to do, she would do it. If it wasn't, then it made no difference. My nephew would try to argue with her. Dani, he was a rabble-rouser a little bit. And he would argue with her, this is what everybody's doing. And it would never register. Why does that matter? So what? If that's what everybody's doing, it didn't make a difference what other people are doing. What should we do? That's all that matters. It just never, you can never argue that. Her husband, Amir, 28 years. He didn't know anything of Torah. He was a lawyer. He passed the bar. Very successful. Have you ever heard of a 28-year-old lawyer, after several years, learning shiurim, becoming a person who has smicha and is a rav? She made that. She made that. My mom, who's tibadeh chaim tovim, not doing so well. When my sister was in the very advanced stages, just this 2 months ago, I was speaking to her, and she was telling me how much she was helping. She would cook every Shabbat for her. She would clean up the home. She would go to the house. And she has her own problems. She has her own family. She would go to the house to make sure that everything was clean and tidy and that my mother was taken care of. Worrying about others was a bigger priority than worrying about herself. How? How is it possible? Like, what was the secret over here? I did a little bit of a math. I figured that once we're in the CPA world, I'll do a little CPA myself. And I wanted to count, like based on the number of kids that she had, how many nails she cut in the course of her lifetime. There's a simple math. There's 13 kids. Every kid has 20 nails. And you do have to do it once every 2 weeks, let's say. So that's 25 weeks in the year. Over the course of, say, 10 years. The math comes out to 65,000 nails that she cut in the course of her lifetime. They're like, wow, that's a lot of nails. And I said, you know what about diapers that she changed over the course of her life? And you take 13 kids, and you do 3 years old, maybe 3 times a day, 365 days of the year. That's close to 50,000 diapers. 50,000 diapers. It's a lot of money. Meals, 2 times a day, 13 kids, 365 days, 15 years. That's close to 150,000 meals in the course of her life. Showers that she had to give to her kids, if you say until age 5, and say maybe 300 days in the year, and 13 children, that's about 20,000 showers. Brushing teeth, which she was very careful with her children in brushing teeth, and flossing, by the way, comes out to about 47,000 times she brushed their teeth. So that nails, 65,000 nails cut, 50,000 diapers changed, 140,000 meals, 20,000 showers, 50,000 brushing teeth. These are massive, massive numbers. She would always say, and it was justified, don't be afraid of hard work. She worked every single day hard. Don't be afraid of hard work. All of that, I did one more calculation. A person, I had to look this one up, breathes about 20,000 breaths every single day. 20,000 on average. Every person. If you multiply over the course, let's say her children are range from 25 to 3 years old, so average age is around 13 years old, and you take all 13, 20,000 times 365, that's over 1 billion breaths of air that she breathed into the world. Vayipach be'apav nishmat chaim. 1 billion breaths of air that she imbued into this world. Incredible level of accomplishment. How did she get from point A to point B is a mystery. How do you get from such humble beginnings, from knowing very little as we did as a family, to raising children that are B'nai Torah, to the ability to be able to say, days before your passing, Ratzon Hashem, thank you for all the wonderful years. And I think after contemplation, I think the answer to that question is that it didn't happen overnight. That's not what happened. She allowed herself to develop. The yesod was, she was always open to grow. Whether it was herself and those around her. She didn't look at others that were better than her with disdain and justification that they're wrong and I'm right. My path, I wish I could be that. One day, I'll grow another step. And each day, she took that with an open mind and she was allowing the Torah to penetrate. And that was the secret. She never lost sight of priorities that a woman, an Am Yisrael, has. Her emunah was stellar. Her tzniut, she developed to a point where it's top-notch. And the most important is the raising of her children, which was the number one priority. And she never lost sight of that. We live in a world where people sometimes have it obscured and they find other priorities. She didn't. Those were her priorities. The reason why I say this is because when I look at her life and our life, and I say to myself, so many in our kehillah are starting very similarly. We have a lot of people that don't have the background, the luxury of having parents that were B'nai Torah, that are Shomer Torah u'mitzvot, that understand the beauty of religion and the beauty of ways of Hashem. And in many ways, we weren't given much of the upbringing that we want to give to our children. And it's a very dangerous place to be, where a person says, what I am today is good enough. And that's it. I don't need my children to become more. I don't need myself to become more. I'm not open to growth. Look what a person could start from and what they could become and emulate one step at a time. Just allow the Torah to come into the house and to grow and to develop. Empower those that are around you. Sometimes you'll see others dressed with tzniut. It's a very tempting thing to say. Why do you dress like that? You look old. Or how come you have so many children? You don't feel exhausted by it? The opposite. She was always the type. I envy you. Wow, it's amazing what you're able to do. I want to become that. How did you do it? She would aspire to be. It's not that far away. It's 25 years. She went from basically basics to having a foundation on children that are living lives of B'nai Torah. There are a lot of people who came together, a lot of people, they just told me today, the amazing Beit HaKnesset, they said people wanted to help, and they put together a nice amount of money to pay for various expenses. I was very honored, I was very taken aback by the thought. I didn't really respond to the board. I didn't really have time to respond, but I did see the lending of a hand of an entire community. And I want to do something that I think that my sister Mitali would want me to do, is I don't want to use that money for myself, even though I know that's what it was given for, but I want to start a fund. I want to start a fund. Somebody before Pesach, a tzaddik from our community, doesn't want me to say who he is, gave me a significant amount of money. He said that this should be for B'nai Torah that need. And I was thinking to myself, what could be better than creating a fund for B'nai Torah? And Be'ezrat Hashem, I plan on using the funds that the community put together. The amount that the Beit HaKnesset gave to me, and the amount that this individual gave, put it together and make a fund so that we can help out B'nai Torah in the zechut of my sister. I think that that's what she would want and she would very much appreciate. That was important to her in her life. I'll finish off with one thought that came to me. Something that I know for a long time is my sister was always a leader. I give you several examples. She was the first one to go to seminary in our family, even though it was just for a summer, but she was the first one. She was also the first one to get married. It drove my mother crazy because she would ask my older sister, Oshrat, she would say, why aren't you dating? She says, I'm not getting married before Mitali gets married. And my mom would go nuts. She would be like, what? What does that have to do with it? You should get married. No, Mitali will get married and then I'll get married. And that's what happened. Mitali was the first one to get married. She led. I remember it was such a big event because it's not just my own immediate family. My mother is one of 11. She has 5 brothers, 5 sisters. She's one of the older ones. But there was maybe 30, I guess cousins I have. About 30 cousins, or maybe 40. And Mitali was the first one out of all 40 to be married. She was number 1. She was the leader. When it came to having children, she was the first one to have children. Made my grandparents great-grandparents. I even remember, because when Yonatan was born, my grandparents flew in from Eretz Yisrael, and the house was so full. It was such a momentous occasion. It was like, wow, Mitali is going to have a baby. They all came. And also at her wedding, everybody came. We had to have a trailer in the back because there were so many people. We just can't have everybody in the house. So when it came to children, when it came to grandchildren, she was the first to have grandchildren. She was a leader in school. She was a leader in her business. Number 1 in her business. And I thought to myself, Mitali, you were a leader in this world. And Hashem chose you to be a leader in our family in the next world. The first one in our family to go to Olam Haba, so that you could lead and set up shop and prepare there for the eventuality of our entire family when we come up to that Olam, hopefully, Acharei 120 Shana, it'll be prepared for us. That's the leadership. It's fitting that she should lead. So I want to finish with the words, thank you, Hashem, for all those wonderful years that you gave me, my sister. And thank you, Mitali, for living your life Lemala min hashemesh, above the sun, higher than the sun. Such majesty that I will never forget. Yehi zichra baruch. Rabbi Hanina ben Akashia אומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות ישראל, לפיכך הרבה להם תורה מצוות, שנאמר, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה ויתיר. תתקדש ויתקדש, שמי רבה, אמרתי ורק יהותי. אשמח בו כנראה ויקראים לשיחי, לחי יכון וביום יכון וחי דרכו בית ישראל, בהגנה ובזמן קריב, ואמו אמן. יש שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולומר מיה יתברך, וישתבח ויתברך, ויתומם, ויתנשא, ויתעדה, ויתעלה, ויתעלה. שמי דקודשה בריחו, אלא מכל בחטא, שירתה תשפך חטא ונחמת. ואמו אמן. על ישראל ועל רבנן ועל תלמידי הון ועל כל תלמידי הון. שתה, דיבה אתה הדין, אתה ואתה. לא, נכון, סמך. חינה וחסתה והחמם מקודם הישמיה ואנו אמן. יש רמה רבה משמיה, חיים ושבע וישועה ונחמה, שזבה ופועה גלוש, שכה וחברה, רווח והצלה לנו כל עמו ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום עממה, והוא והחמה, ויעשה שלום עלינו כל עמו ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עם רחם הכל בריאותיו, הוא יחוס ויחמול ויחם הנפש ורון שמה שיפתד מן העולם. מיטלי נעמי בת גילה פרחה, רוח אדוני תנחנה בגן עדן, היא וכל בנו ישראל שוכבות עמן, חכמים וחסריחות, וכן יהיה רצון ונאמר אמן. תזכו למצוות.